welcome to What's Up Watchtower. It's been a while. Yeah, yep. I'm Robin.
I'm Mike.
And we are the founders of What's Up Watchtower, the YouTube channel. It's been a while since we've made a video. I've been making videos on Adventures with Robin. That's my personal YouTube channel. And so I've talked about some Jehovah's Witness stuff over there if you want to check that out. But our schedules are pretty crazy. And we're not together a lot. We're like ships passing in the night.
We talk a lot, though, about this stuff. So it got to a point where we keep talking about these certain subjects, and especially with the convention being released, now you can watch all the videos, not just the videos, but the entire convention on YouTube from start to finish. So with so much stuff coming out and new things that they're doing, we just felt like it's time to make another video to talk about these things, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, you've watched most of the convention, right?
Yep, I finished Friday and Saturday, and I'm into Sunday morning.
It's so funny that he watches more and listens to more of Jehovah's Witness stuff than he ever did when we were witnesses.
Yep. Yeah, I don't miss a meeting now. And I actually feel very fortunate. I've mentioned this before in a video, but there's a YouTube channel called Theocratic Meetings, and it is a congregation here in Florida, in Apopka, Florida, and they broadcast all of the meetings, start to finish. And yeah, they're great. Seems like a bunch of nice people, so I go to the meetings with them.
Who knows, Apopka? Maybe one day we'll actually show up.
Yep. I have the same last name as some brothers and sisters that already go to that congregation, so sure I could find my way in there.
Right.
So, oh well. But with all the stuff that we've been talking about, there's been some reoccurring thoughts that I've had, things that I keep bugging Robin about and talking to her about. Like, well, what about this? And she's like, oh, enough already, let's make a video.
Yeah.
So, the thing that got me started, and that I've been wanting to talk about for the longest time, is, and I'll give you just a quick backstory. There was an interview on a radio program I listened to called Fresh Air, and they were talking to a person who was a presidential historian who had written a book about the Nixon administration, and at that time there was a great threat of nuclear war. The tensions were high, and there was this entire book written about the contingency plan for the government. Like, what if there were a nuclear attack, and what if the president was gone, and then who is next in line to handle these responsibilities, and who does what. And it was such a very detailed plan from start to finish, all the way through. It made me think, if Jehovah's Witnesses are indeed God's true organization, and Armageddon is indeed coming, that if a worldly government not backed by Jehovah has the wherewithal to make a complete plan as to how to proceed, then certainly the Jehovah's Witnesses would have a plan for the imminent threat of Armageddon. So I started thinking, well, what is their plan? We are now learning, again, that it seems that the governing body members who are still alive when the Great Tribulation starts may be caught away to heaven.
That's what they've said.
Yeah.
That's what they said recently.
So let's just say that happens.
Who's in charge?
There's got to be a plan set in place if that happens. And I'm assuming that they wouldn't necessarily have control over when they were caught away to heaven, assuming you believe that's even real. So if it were to happen at a time that they couldn't control, and if you thought something was imminent and you couldn't control a time when you were going to be gone from the picture, wouldn't you want to make sure everyone underneath you knew the plan? They knew what they had to do to continue things going when you left the scene. And I just don't think there's any reason why a Jehovah's Witness couldn't ask their elders or call Bethel and find out what is the plan. I mean, this is our future. This is our eternal lives we're talking about. This isn't just like a job or a hobby. This is your eternal life. So I feel like anyone involved in this should be able to know what the plan is for their own future. You know, doesn't that make sense? If it's your life, it's your future, what is the plan? And just saying we're going to, you know, each group will talk to one of the brothers or one of the overseers in the congregation, the book study conductor, or, you know, the congregation overseer will arrange things. Just saying that they will arrange things doesn't help you. It doesn't help you plan for your eminent future for Armageddon. So it just makes sense to me to ask the question, what's the plan? What is our plan for the future? And it should be a detailed plan. Unless, of course, they don't really believe it's going to happen. If there's no plan, I would say that that would be evidence that they do not believe Armageddon is going to happen. Because you can't make these kind of claims that the world is coming to an end and not make a plan if you indeed believe it's true.
Yeah, I mean, most Jehovah's Witnesses, the rank and file, don't even think about, well, what's actually, you know, if this is really happening, what actually are going to be the protocols? What are we going to have to do? Mm-hmm. Now, they're trying to get, and they're using it in the guise of, you know, in the end, you know, you may not understand why certain directions are given, but you have to follow them. And so that puts the witness in a state of thinking, oh, well, they know what they're doing. They know what the plan is, and I just have to follow it. So I think there's not a plan, and that they've made that by putting these kind of, you have to be loyal, you have to follow directions, blah, 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 because in the end, so the witnesses probably do think there is a plan, but I don't think there's a plan.
Mm-hmm. I would bet there's not a plan.
No.
Because I don't feel like this is something that a Jehovah's Witness could or should get in trouble for asking. I don't know how a person could be told, don't worry about that. I mean, it's not a bad question. You're not questioning God's organization. You're just saying, you know, I feel like I should be able to know what the plan is for my life and the life of my family and my future. If we're going to abandon everything in this world, if I'm going to lose my job because I'm not going to work meeting nights, if I'm going to not send my kids to college, if I'm going to not do anything to prepare for any future in this world, and I'm banking on God's new kingdom, then I deserve to know something. I've given up my entire life to serve this organization. I deserve to know what is in store for me in my future. What are the plans to keep me safe, my family safe? Where are we going to go? These are like legitimate, real questions if you believe the end is really coming. Which, I'm telling you, I don't think they believe it. I don't think they believe it. I think now, as time goes on, with how they have changed things to fit a new plan, it's like they've written a new plan and they have to change beliefs according to their new plan, which is why you get some of the doctrinal turnarounds that we've seen in the last 20 years. So, yeah, I feel like there isn't a plan, but I don't feel like it's wrong to ask. I don't even feel like it... I feel like you should ask, what's the plan for our future?
Yeah. You made a really good illustration last night about the doctrinal change of the generation of 1914. Because we were, you know, when we think about people that we know, our families, and why they believe this lie, you know, when I think we're talking about in the 80s when we were, you know, preteen, early teenage years, mm-hmm. Those were the golden years for Watchtower. That was the years of the greatest growth right? During
Yeah,
the
I mean,
80s.
oh yeah, it was booming.
Because, these people that had been alive in 1914 were now very old, and, we're just so close to the end because these people have to still be alive. This generation would not pass away when the end comes.
Right.
So, maybe you can just
the Jehovah's Witnesses will say there's new light, that the light gets brighter. And I just thought to myself, like, if you typed in a destination into a GPS, like, let's imagine we have I don't want to say a magical GPS, no, a non-magical GPS that can do other things. And we type in destination one generation from 1914. And so we get in our vehicle and we start going, boom, it shows the clear map. There's the dot on the screen, destination one generation. So you continue your journey. You can see how long it's going to take, one generation. You see time ticking, one generation as it goes. As you get closer to that destination and finally arrive, you look at the GPS, because you don't see anything around. You're like, I don't think I'm here. GPS says that I'm here. My destination, one generation. And you look around, there's nothing there, and look at the GPS, it says recalculating. No, stay on this road for another generation. Would you say that following their instructions that you reached your destination? Is it new light to say that your destination is now a different place?
A new destination?
Yeah.
Hey, if you had an appointment at that first destination, you would have missed your appointment.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that no one really, and I don't want to say no one, I mean that's very, I don't think a lot of people sit down and think about
They're not thinking about it.
Just the words that are being said to you. Mm-hmm. Because these words don't make sense. And it was Brother Splain. The way he explained a generation as two people who were, I can't think of the word. Contemporaries of one another, thank you. That's not the definition of those words.
No.
They have made up a definition because I am a contemporary of my father's. We worked together, we did projects together, but I certainly wouldn't be called of his generation. It doesn't, we all know that that's not true. And if you say to yourself that you accept that definition of a generation, you're not being intellectually honest with yourself. You're lying to yourself because you know it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, and even like in the worldly definitions, I mean, our parents are called baby boomers. They're of that generation. We are
Gen X.
Gen X. Yeah.
Gen Y came after us. It's not all the same thing, and you all know it's not. You know, who are you fooling? You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah.
The witnesses aren't fooling anyone by saying this, and the people from the platform aren't fooling anyone by writing these talks and outlines. We know it's not true.
Well, they are. They're fooling a whole bunch of people. They're fooling our families. And, you know, I just, the further I get from this religion, and the more I listen to the BS that's coming out from the JW broadcasting and the literature, everything, I think, how can these people that are in it be so foolish?
Mm-hmm.
How can they be so foolish to believe this?
Yeah, I wrote it off when, early on, after maybe even a few years ago, I realized, I just wrote it off. I was like, when we were kids, like you said before, in the 80s, it was still plausible that we were within that generation.
Yeah.
But once that time has passed, we talk about this, we don't understand how the people we know, how our families, our parents, who are not stupid people,
No.
How they can continue to buy into this when it's been proven to be false. And I'm not even saying it's my opinion it's false. It's provable.
Right.
So when proof is staring you in the face and you refuse to recognize it, that's a whole nother level of cognitive dissonance.
And it really has really come forward how much they lie, how much the governing body lies, how much the people that are running the organization, how much they lie and how deceitful they are. They're in a lot of trouble. I mean, it's like this is just the tip of the iceberg, but they are in a lot of trouble because of all the leaked videos that are coming out of meetings. You guys, if you've watched other people's videos, you would have seen
financial meetings.
The meeting about record keeping, and how they are, the reason why they got into so much trouble with the Australian Royal Commission, and this came out in JW Community Podcast that just came out, that they were interviewing Angus Stewart, who was lead counsel on that, and he said that it wasn't so much that, I guess you could say it's not so much that other organizations didn't have a problem with child sexual abuse. It was just that Jehovah's Witnesses kept such meticulous records. And that's what got them in trouble. And so now they've admitted that it's their record keeping and the way they kept records that has gotten them in trouble and cost them thousands, millions of dollars now. So they're changing how they're keeping records, which that's like, you just hear sirens going off when you hear that, because what that means is that they are going to do their best to hide the problems within the organization, and that they're going to be destroying records on a regular basis. So now the media has gotten a hold of this story, and they're taking off with it, and it's not going to be long before more investigations are going to be conducted into Jehovah's Witnesses. They're their own worst enemy. They've said it out loud that, first of all, they're never going to change the two-witness rule, and now they're going to change how they keep records by making sure that records get destroyed.
Yeah, good record keeping.
Yeah.
Bonfire. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
So the point was that they require of the rank and file to be honest in all things. Honest in your taxes, honest with, your employers, that, you won't lie for your employers, things like this. But they themselves are not honest.
Right.
They're not honest.
He who is faithful in least is faithful also in much. And they are not faithful even in the least of things.
And, just this is kind of a small thing, but there was just news articles that the actual Watchtower sign, that iconic Watchtower sign in Brooklyn that was erected in 1970, was there illegally. They didn't have a permit. They never did it in a legal fashion. So the people who bought the building and wanted to erect, a time and date sign up there, no, not allowed. That Watchtower sign was illegal for 50 years.
Yep. Busted.
Yeah.
After the fact.
Yeah.
Hey, they got away with it.
They got away with it. They never had to pay fines.
Unbelievable, these guys.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we talked about that I think is super interesting, because I watch all of the meetings, and I say I watch all of them, I never miss a meeting.
He never misses.
So part of the teaching techniques that they're using now at the Kingdom Hall is to show a photograph, an illustration, painting, whatever it is, of part of the Bible story that's being talked about, whether it's in the Watchtower or in the book study. They do that quite a bit. And they ask people just to comment on it. And what this is it's confirmation bias 101. You're asking a person to tell you what they see in the picture. And the truth of the matter is, there's no wrong answer, because it's all just self-confirming dribble. It could be anything. Anyone could say anything about that picture. And if you've ever watched the streaming meetings or anything online, you'll know this, you'll see it. Or if you've been to the Kingdom Hall recently, the picture could be of anything and people will comment, yes, and notice, it looks like this brother is very happy to be in the ministry today. Yes, you're correct. It looks like the person at the door is very receptive and maybe they were even praying for God's help to direct someone to them. Yes, you are also correct. It looks like there's toys in the yard. They have children, so they're probably talking about, the hope for their children in the future. You are also correct. Everything you say is right. Everything everyone says is right. And it's designed for the congregation to build each other up through confirmation bias. And real quick, just a real quick definition, a little explanation, because I thought the bottom part of this was the most interesting thing. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypotheses. And it also says that confirmation biases contribute to overconfidence in personal beliefs and can maintain or strengthen beliefs in the face of contrary evidence. So that's what we see. People confirming each other's beliefs, and then when you come to something now, like, and we talked about this a little bit last night too, when you come to something now where you have movies that the organization is now producing, feature-length films, like the new Jonah movie that is actually at the convention this year. Robin and I started talking about some of these biblical stories that there is no way for them to be true. There is no possible physical way for these things to be true. And yet, we have full movies about them, books written about them, articles written about them, people being encouraged to change their life to act like these characters from these fictional stories. And Jonah is one of the craziest ones.
Yeah.
One of the absolute craziest ones. I mean, it's so, I don't even know if it bears getting into. It's so silly. You're eaten by a giant fish, but there's oxygen in there, you can breathe, and you have water so you're not dead. You don't get squished and have no oxygen. You don't get eaten by the acid in the stomach of whatever creature you're in. The thing doesn't Not
to mention the only whale that is capable of a human fitting through their mouth, right, is a shark whale.
A whale shark?
A whale shark. And they only eat like krill. Like they don't have like
they're filter feeders.
Yeah, they don't have like whatever it is. It's not esophagus. Yeah, esophagus wide enough for someone to fit into and whatnot. So it's all crap.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
And this is part of what we talked about too. Like, I don't understand how my parents, and I don't know if they believe it or not, because I don't know what they think in their heart, but how can you believe in Noah's Ark? How can you believe in a fish swallowing Jonah? How can you believe in a God that has so many fantastical stories about them as well?
And that was the one that got me, was when I finally started to break down the story of Noah's flood and to really think about it logically, scientifically, to try to prove that it actually happened. I came up empty-handed, and that's when the veil really started to lift, and I started to think, how did I believe this? It's like believing in Santa Claus. How did I believe in this foolish story for so many years? That it was literally happened the way the Bible says it did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I may as well have believed in all the Greek gods and the stories that those were literal.
Yeah, it's the same type of thing. Not only is the story of Noah's Ark plagiarized from the Epic of Gilgamesh and other stories that are written way prior, but the entire idea, I mean, for any Jehovah's Witnesses who may be watching this and may be saying, these guys are just way off their base, I invite you to go watch some videos by another religious person, not a Jehovah's Witness, named Ken Ham. Ken Ham is a young earth creationist who has built a mock ark in Kentucky. And this life-size real ark is supposed to be a walkthrough of what it would really have been like. Built completely to scale, and it's an epic disaster. There's no way, there's just no way this was possible. The animals even required too much food. You couldn't even carry all the food on the boat that it would require to keep some of these animals alive for a year. So,
and not even to mention afterwards, as far as diversity and ability to procreate, and there not be horrendous, genetic problems from there only being one pair of each of these animals.
No, it's not possible.
No.
And science proves it. That's the thing. You can look at DNA and see the diversity of DNA and find out, like, through generations, real generations, that go backward in time, you can kind of find when this particular animal or this particular set of DNA was at its earliest stage, before it was mixed with so many other interbreeding throughout its ancestor's lifetime. They can track the DNA. And guess what? DNA goes way further back than many people think. 6,000 years, the creation of Earth, the creation of this stuff. No. No. Science has proven these things. And for you to deny math, basically, it's willful ignorance.
And to be honest, when I started to really think about this and figure it out, I felt like I was so stupid. I was like, how stupid was I that I believed this story for 30 years?
Yeah, I know. I felt the same way. I felt kind of like a kid who believed in Santa Claus, and then his friends all know Santa Claus isn't real. His friends all know the deal, and he's still like, well, I still believe in Santa Claus. And eventually people are like, when they find out, or you realize to yourself, oh man, it's not real. Yeah, you think about that. You think about all the people that you've known who are just regular folks, and they take that story as an allegory or a lesson or whatever. But to believe that every single part of that was literal and real, yeah, it makes you feel like you were really gullible. And it's hard. It's humbling. It's really humbling to say, oh crap, I don't know anything about this stuff. And then it's frustrating because you're like, oh crap, my parents have told me my whole life that the people in the world, they're bad basically because they lie to their kids about Santa Claus and they tell them fake stuff. And I'm like, man, we got the same thing. At least they only got, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus.
Not their entire world view.
Our entire world was it was Noah's Ark, virgin births, like all of these burning bushes, people walking through fire, angels killing 185,000 men, like all of these fantastic stories with no evidence whatsoever to support them. And witnesses will say, it's true because it says it in the Bible. And I'm like, well, how do you know that's true? And they say, well, because the Bible says it's true. And it's written in the Bible, and the book says itself is true. It's circular reasoning. It doesn't stand up to any criticism. It's false. It's provably wrong. And I'm going to take a breath.
Yeah, and hey, some of you may still be Christians watching this, and you may still believe these stories, and, that's your prerogative to believe what you want to believe. But I know for us, for me, I can only speak really for myself, is that's why the waking up process is so painful, because your whole worldview is not as you thought it was, and you have to then begin questioning everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I question everything. People are sometimes surprised at like not opinions, but like things that I will listen to, like podcasts and stuff that they think contradict what I think and believe. And I said, no, I question everything. You know, I might be like politically, I might have leaned more Democratic or, you know, more liberal, but I question even that. I question, is that even right? Like, I will listen to the other side, and the other side has good points. And so, I mean, I don't feel like I know anything for sure anymore.
Yeah. And I think basing your life and all your decision in life and all of your everything about your future on faith is not the way to go, because faith is not an accurate way to find truth. And truth is what I want in my life. And if the truth is something that would be considered bad, or if the truth is something that would be considered good, I don't care. I want truth. I want to live in truth. And people who have opportunity to learn the truth about whatever they're interested in, even about, you know, and I'm not saying the truth about God, because I don't claim to have any special knowledge of any type of a God or anything like that. I'm talking about things that are provable, like Noah's Ark, you know, and so many of the stories that are written in the Bible that aren't provable, that have no basis in history. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness watching this and you can say, yes, the Bible is historically accurate. No, it's not. And you know, maybe you're suffering from confirmation bias. Maybe you are only looking in sources that confirm your pre-existing beliefs, which is exactly what the Jehovah's Witnesses do by not allowing anyone who's a member to do research outside of their publications, because that is the way they keep you believing, to keep confirming that what you believe is right. What you already think, yes, it is correct because it says so here in the publication, but you learned to believe what you think from that publication. Do you see it's a circle? Do you see it's a circular reasoning? You've got to break the loop and start looking elsewhere. If what you believe is correct, it will just confirm that what you believe is right. Mm-hmm. But you may find that the truth is different than what you were told, and there's no reason in the information age that we live in, when you have the entire internet available on your smartphone, why you would believe something that's not true if you want to believe the truth. Now, if you don't,
they don't want to.
I was going to say, if you don't want to believe what's true, you can be a negative naysayer and, you know, basically say, oh, everyone who says stuff against us is liars. They're bitter. They hate God. They want to live in sin. You know, whatever number of crazy excuses the governing body and elders and higher ups in the organization, whatever number of things they want to say about people who have left, the truth is, they don't want you to open the door and see what we saw, because you will also leave. I guarantee you this. If you do research, you will quit being a Jehovah's Witness. Because I never thought that I would quit being a Jehovah's Witness, and I was out as quick as I could snap my fingers when I knew it was wrong, because I'm interested in truth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some people would still go because their families go. But those days are numbered too, because, I mean, we hear from people still who have woken up, but their marriage mates are still in it. And they, you know, I just got an email just a couple of weeks ago from a woman who's married to, I believe, a ministerial servant. And, you know, she's woken up, but she doesn't know what to do because, you know, I mean, now they are actually promoting divorce if you are married to someone who is a detriment to your spirituality, which that never was in the literature up until this past year.
Yeah, that's another change, and they're making these changes because they have to.
Mm-hmm. It's a mass purge they're doing to try to get out anybody who would question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the reason they find apostates so dangerous. Because if people learn that what they're told by the governing body, what's been written in the Watchtower magazines and the books that you've read and we've read, and what you've based your life on, when you know the whole story, and I'm not even saying I know the whole story, but you know the backstory, you do research, you learn about the organization, and you won't trust them anymore. And you find about lawsuits and money being paid out that they lie about when confronted. That, you know, you can see your governing body member, Jeffrey Jackson, testify in the Australian Royal Commission before a government-appointed panel. And people who are witnesses will say, that's just a lie. It's not true. It didn't happen. And
yeah, they don't even believe that it happened. I saw one video where it was someone confront. I don't know if it was a car crash or something. They didn't even know who Jeffrey Jackson was. The witness didn't even know who Jeffrey. They were like, "Who are they? Are they an apostate?"
Are you guys watching the JW broadcasting? Are you? Do any of the witnesses watch it? I watch it. I don't know how I watch it, but I do.
I don't know either. And I don't watch. I usually don't get to watch them.
It's just beyond me how I definitely know more than most of the Jehovah's Witnesses know about their religion. You know, I can confidently say that. And it's just shocking that people don't want to know. I just can't believe it. I don't understand. And that's the other thing.
Okay.
The stories that they tell. This is something that's been bugging me for a long time. A long time. And you see it in print, and you especially hear it in talks at the conventions. And as I said, I'm listening to the current convention, which is basically exactly a replay of last convention, just switch some words around.
That's an interesting point, because I haven't listened to, I listened to certain parts, maybe certain talks, but he's listened to the last 3 conventions from beginning to end.
I listened to the last one at least twice all the way through because I'm bored. I got no, you know. So either way, if you listen to the convention all the way through, certain talks and the theme of the talks, the theme of the assembly. Last year it was remain loyal, loyalty. This year it's something about courage.
Courageous.
So basically, it's all the same talks. You take out the word courage and you put in the word loyalty. And then in this current assembly, they're talking about how courageous it is to be loyal. It's the same stuff. It's the same talks. It's the same. I'm not saying the words are exactly the same. I'm saying if you compare context to context, it's the same assembly as last year. And why already, after only a couple of years into the JW broadcasting, are they now just showing meetings and stuff, like the Gilead school meetings and the JW broadcasting? I know you probably didn't watch that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So now, like, they're already out of content. They have no new content to show. They're repeating videos already, and this is only like 3.5 years into this JW broadcasting thing. You know? So what is going on with them? There's nothing new to learn. There's nothing new to take in. Everything that you heard at this convention is basically the same as the last convention. I can tell you this, Armageddon is no closer last year than it was this year. So what is going on with them? It seems like they've given up in like creating a lot of new material. And now their goal is making videos. Like we're witnessing a publishing company become a film production company. You know, because publishing is dead. Making books and magazines is dead. In the 70s and 80s, that was great. People loved it. There was no internet, no smartphones. But now, everything is video. Everything is YouTube. You know, so they're changing with the times. You're looking at an organization who is not content to keep on the road they were on because the end is so imminent. No, they're changing and modifying and trying to stay relevant. Why? Because they want to be around in a relevant way for the next amount of time, because the end is not coming. There is no end coming.
Right. But they got to keep members because they got to keep that money rolling in. And that's, we don't even have time to get into that. But my goodness, the stuff that's been coming out about their finances and the Kingdom Hall closings and how empty the Kingdom Halls are, and yet they're growing by leaps and bounds. I don't understand. If you're a current Jehovah's Witness and you believe that this organization is growing out of control growth, you are just foolish. You're foolish.
And now they're not making yearbooks anymore, so they're taking away all of the number proof that they used to have available.
Yeah.
And now online, only positive reports are available.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, we give you updates about what's going around in the world. No, you don't. You only give us what you want us to see now, because now it's not public knowledge. Now none of that stuff is public anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you're in the news. They're in the news all over the world. They're in the news, but you're never going to know about it because you're not going to see it on jw.org.
No.
But you're in the news in the Netherlands,
Canada,
the United Kingdom.
Yeah, big protest in London this past weekend.
Yeah, this weekend. There's a huge protest. I think they said over 80 ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. It's the largest protest. And you're not going to know about that. All you're going to know is anything that makes you guys look good or that feeds into your confirmation bias that you're being persecuted.
Mm-hmm. And the big class action lawsuit in Canada. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Oh, and there's one forming in the United States too. Mm-hmm. So, before long that will come out too. So, this whole records keeping, and then there's this new thing about a master plan. They have a master plan, which is has to do with the merging of congregations and the closing of kingdom halls.
Yep.
And it's very interesting.
The thing that I listened to that meeting as well, the thing I found most interesting in these meetings is that they're working on like a 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly the meeting that I saw wasn't from this year. It was from a couple of years ago. But let's just say it was 2016 because I'm not positive. They're working on like a 5-year plan. Like, okay, well this is going to be this in 2021 or 2022. So you're planning 6 years in the future? Why can't you let every young person go to college and college degree in 4 years and be out? Why, if you're planning 6 years ahead in this system of things, why are you telling everyone that at the end is basically like coming tomorrow? You don't let them plan 6 years ahead, and yet you're planning 6 years ahead. Do you see how wicked that is? Do you see how evil that is? To withhold knowledge from people who are so relying on you. They base their life around you, all of their decisions around you. And when you withhold information from them, that could benefit them. Mm-hmm. Someone could make some short-term investments for a year and try and, build something for their future. If they know the system's going to go on at least another 6 years, that's what the society's planning for. So it's just so unfair that good people, I'm assuming good people, I know some of you ain't good people, good people are hurt by this. They're hurt financially. They're hurt in ways that many of us will never even know, by not being able to plan their life, by being told to quit your job if you're asked to work on a meeting night. It's not loving, it's not kind, it's not taking in people's circumstances into consideration. And I gotta tell you, if Jesus was a real person and lived on this earth and came back and saw somebody, he would have a more caring attitude than the way the witnesses are so black and white about a person's circumstances. Jesus was an understanding person, a person who could empathize with people. And if you can truly say to yourself that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society as an organization empathizes with its members, I'd think that you didn't know what the word empathize means. you know, because they don't. And that in itself is not Christ-like. And being demanding of people, especially uneducated people, like most all of us are, who were born and raised as Jehovah's Witnesses, uneducated people, laborers who work very hard for what they have and give so much of themselves to your organization, to lead them astray is cruel. It's taking advantage. It's evil.
It is. And, you know, it's been talked about in so many other people's videos. We talked about it in our video with Susan Gaskin. The fact that they, you know, their master plan, as they are calling it. Well, first of all, they pitched it on JW Broadcasting. And what they pitched on JW Broadcasting is not how it has turned out. They lied. And I think they knew they were lying when they said what they said. Because, well, John Cedars actually did a great video about this, and he broke it down more than I will here. But basically, they lied. They said, we realized that we need X amount more congregations in the United States, that they needed to build this X number. And so what we're going to do is we're going to forgive your loans. Instead, you're going to turn over your assets to us, including your savings with the congregation. And some congregations had been saved. Their Kingdom Hall was paid off, okay? And they had been saving money to build a new Kingdom Hall. And some of them had quite significant amount of savings. And what the society did was say, okay, you can only keep X amount in your savings account, enough for like 2 months worth of you know, your maintenance fees or whatever you pay, like electric, whatever. So basically maybe like keep 2,000 out of 50,000 that you had saved. So they basically just came in and took your money. They took your money and they said, well, we're going to use this because, you know, we know you need a new Kingdom Hall and we need, you know, 10,000 more Kingdom Halls or however many it was. And so this is going to go towards all of that. You know, we're going to compile all the money, we're going to see where the need is, and then we're going to pay for the new Kingdom Halls. Well, that's not what happened. Instead, they took your money, they closed your congregation, merged you with somebody else, and that's what they're doing across the board. So they just took in, I mean, he did the figures, I mean, they took in millions upon millions of dollars. And this was like just a quick, you know, a quick way for them to make millions of dollars. So that's just, you know, that should be illegal, what they did. What they did should be against the law.
Again, it's not caring for the people who work very hard in their name. The people who are knocking on doors and saving their money and taking care of the Kingdom Hall and making sure it's painted and that the grass is cut. And, you know, these are just regular folks working really hard to do the best that they can do. And this corporation is saying, I appreciate everything you've done. I will now profit from your hard work. Stay warm and well fed. See you later. And it's just not right. You know,
they don't care for the poor in the congregation. There are no programs to help the poor in their congregations. Instead, it's left up to the other brothers and sisters to care for them. But they have no program. They're like the only church that has no programs to financially help in any way their people.
Yeah, and we're not saying that members of the congregation don't go out of their way to help others, because we know that that's a real thing. But as an organization,
there's nothing.
No.
There's no programs to help anybody.
And yet they do enjoy charitable status, a charity status where they're tax exempt. But what charitable services do they offer? Knocking on your door and telling you that the world's going to end and that you'll live if you're a Jehovah's Witness is not charitable, because, well, it's not charitable anyway. They do nothing to help people. and saying that the way we help people is to save their lives, you should look at your own life. Assess what you believe. You know, just knowing what we talked about. Like, if God's commands lead to such clear outcomes, that leads us to a scripture in the Bible that I say is not very clear.
Okay.
God spoke.
Okay. What did he say?
God spoke. John 12:28 and 29. And it says, Father, glorify your... This is when Jesus was baptized. I think. Either way. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came out of heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The crowd was standing there and heard it and began to say that it had thundered. Others said an angel had spoken to him. This is one of the 3 instances in the Bible when God himself speaks directly to people. So if God himself... Okay, our understanding as Jehovah's Witnesses was that at the end of all of this, the people will know that I alone am Jehovah. You know, that God would put it into people's hearts, that they would know he was the one who did all of this stuff. Well, I don't think so, because in the Bible just there, it says God himself spoke to the people. And some of the people were like, is that thunder? So clearly, when God himself speaks, people didn't get it. People didn't understand. So explain that to me. Did God really speak? Well, the Bible says that it did. Well, then how come people didn't understand? How can God directly speak to you and you not get it and think it's thunder? My guess is that it was probably thunder. Just read that. Read it in context. John 12:28. Read the whole chapter. It makes no sense.
Yeah, you would think that if God was speaking, he would be absolutely clear and that the people would have heard it. And this is his son, the beloved, whom he had approved. And he is glorifying his name. He has glorified it, will glorify it again. Every freaking person there should have known what was said and who said it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but nobody seemed to get it. And that doesn't make any sense. At all. If you're God, that doesn't make sense.
Nothing's clear, God. Nothing's clear. Even your so-called channel of communication has gotten everything wrong since the beginning.
And that's the other thing. These people making these extraordinary claims that they have special knowledge. And yet, where did they get this special knowledge?
We never thought about that as witnesses. We really never thought about that. What does that mean to be a channel? That they're channeling God's words. What does that mean to be a channel? That's spiritism.
Yeah, well, they're having contact with the spirit realm, for sure. They have to, if indeed that's a real thing, which I don't think that is a real thing.
No, but by their own standard, that is spiritism.
Mm-hmm. By, any contact with the spirit realm, or trying to contact the spirit realm, which they would have to be doing to be getting God's Holy Spirit. I don't know how. Nobody knows how this works, and the thing is, why can't we know how it works?
Right. I mean, and I never thought about it until, and I reread it in the Revelation Climax book. There's a chapter in there that talks about them being the channel of communication. And it talks about those who had died already of the 144,000. And I am not making this up. It is in the Revelation Climax book. Those who had already died and were serving in heaven as kings and priests, that God was using them, possibly using them to direct right now the preaching work, and we're also directing the governing body, the faithful slaves still on earth, and that we're communicating, basically in communication. through some means, through a channel. We took a little break. I was looking through this book, and I couldn't find, and I'll probably find it once we finish filming, but where they talked about the channel of communication and how, and I know it's been a few months that I read it, and I wish I would have marked it. But anyways, if you haven't read this book lately, you know, it's a very fascinating, crazy book.
It's a real page turner.
It's a real page turner because it is just full of fantasy, rather, and everything that they talk about. The part that I was just skimming through, but they were talking about how the numbers of the partakers, memorial partakers, and how it had gone down, and how that was evidence, you know, of getting closer to the end. And what are the memorial partakers, I wonder, this year? I don't think those numbers are going to be released.
No. And that's the other thing, like when we talk about the things that we believed when we were kids, that was something that was supposed to be a proof of God's organization, that they were correct, that the number of those who were claiming to be of the anointed, the number of those was going down and down and down every year. I seem to remember, like at one of the lowest points, it was below 8,000, like just below 8,000. And now, last time I heard, it was over 18,000. So going in the opposite direction is another thing that I never thought I would see happen, because I always believed it to be the other way, that the number of the anointed would keep declining until the end comes, you know,
right.
And that's it. But now, what does that mean?
Well, now they're basically teaching a rapture.
Yeah.
Basically is what they're teaching, that the governing body will be caught away to heaven,
right,
along with the rest of the anointed before the end.
Have to get those stickers on the back of their car that say, in case of rapture, this car will be driverless or whatever, you know, look out. But that's interesting in its own right, because they do have a belief system, the Jehovah's Witnesses do, like a backup that says if someone who is of the anointed should fall away, someone else will take their place, because that number is sealed. So just in the last decade, there's been an addition of at least 10,000. And that does not include the many of the older ones who may have passed away by now. They're still not part of that original 8,000 that turned into 18,000. They've died. So that means, let's say all of those 8,000 are dead now, which they probably are, because that's from a long time ago. They were all elderly for the most part. So if that's the case, then you have, let's just say, 16,000 new people claiming to be of the anointed. If that's true, then you've lost more than 10% of the anointed people have. Like, what has happened to 10% of that number that in the last 10 years it needed to be refilled with 18,000 or 16,000 new people? You know, it doesn't make sense. If people have fallen away and are no longer in that class of people, you just have a whole bunch of new ones coming in?
None of it makes any sense, because it's all fake.
Well, I know that, but there are people out here who believe it whole soul, but they're not watching these videos.
Yeah, well, they might be, and then they'll leave their nasty comment. Send.
You guys are from the devil.
Yes.
Go serve the
Wicked
devil.
apostates. Send.
You are mentally diseased and stupid and ugly.
And fat.
And
that one's always towards me.
And why don't you go get a life? Signed, Jehovah's servant.
Who shall remain faceless on my avatar.
That's the other thing I think is great. The internet, especially YouTube, is filled with videos, not just of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, but of assemblies, of meetings, of Kingdom Hall stuff, of actual Jehovah's Witness stuff. None of it's supposed to be on there. None of it. Not one legitimate Jehovah's Witness supporting video is supposed to be on YouTube. They even claimed publicly they had no YouTube channel. None of their videos should be on YouTube. And yet, there are dedicated, baptized servants who stream the meetings, who stream the assemblies, who take video recording stuff to the assemblies and put it all online. And these people, hey, thank you.
Thank you.
But you're breaking the rules, even though you're trying to be good and maybe reach people. You're exposing how silly your organization is. But I'm glad you do, because it gives me content to watch online and stuff, you know.
Well, this video was just pent up ranting that we needed to get out, and we want to make more, videos and have more streamlined content, but I don't have time to sit down and do the research and outline it and everything the way that I used to. So I guess what you'll get from now on is just our rants. But we are supportive of those that are making videos. We're so glad there's so many still making videos. And the London protest, I do support it because I know that they are peacefully protesting, and what their intention is for it. So I never thought I would be in support of that type of activism, but I actually do see the benefits. And if it can get some media coverage, I don't know if it's getting any media coverage, but even just for those few thousand people in attendance, they have to pass the signs on their way in. They have to pass the peaceful protesters who have been cordoned off in order to go in, and it's going to make an impact on those that are there. It will, on at least a percentage of them. So any way that we can wake people up is a positive thing. I see it.
And you can't buy into the fear that the witnesses are selling, that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, that the anointed people are saying, that the governing body, that all these higher ups in the organization, the ones who are giving the talks from the platforms, the ones who are writing the magazines and writing the outlines, they're stoking fear and paranoia, trying to get people not to trust outsiders, so that the group can remain a closed unit and stay whole. Because the minute people start mixing with those outside the group and start talking to them and realizing that they're just regular, decent people, they start losing. Because the witnesses realize, gee, I was lied to. These people aren't evil. They're not awful. They're nice, they're kind, they're helpful. They're here spending their own time and money to help show us that we're wasting our life in a group that's been lying to us. So,
Yeah, and that just makes me think of my last conversation with my parents. And my mom said, when I was bringing up about certain things, she said, well, it sounds like you've been listening to a lot of apostates. And I said, okay, so former Jehovah's Witnesses. And she says, who have an agenda. And I said, well, what's their agenda? Well, they have an axe to grind. I said, okay, they have an axe to grind. Why do they have an axe to grind? And she said, she couldn't really answer that. I said, just because people are angry about something that happened, and they're angry and they speak out, doesn't mean that they're lying, does it? And I think she'd never thought of that before. And I said, does it mean that they're lying just because they're angry? And she said, well, no. Finally, she admitted, no, it doesn't mean that they're lying. And I said, maybe they're angry because they've been lied to. and they've been taken advantage of, and they've been hurt. So yes, they might have an agenda, but it's not based on a lie.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's true.
So everybody has an agenda.
Right. And the Jehovah's Witness agenda is to keep its members, to keep its membership, to keep the money coming in. Because they've already lost more than they will tell you. They've lost a huge percentage of members. Because we know for sure, and there's been videos like Mike and Kim have done some videos on certain congregations that have lost multiple families, multiple members in each family. So like 4 people in this family, 5 people in this family, 3 people in this family, all leave a congregation. You know, numbers in the teens and 20s that all leave because they're all related, they're all family members and stuff. So it is in the Watchtower's best interest to keep you there, to keep you at the meetings, because it's super discouraging for all the ones who are still there when they see another 10 people leave the congregation, and then, you know, then maybe their doubts start creeping up. Like, why is everybody leaving? Maybe I should see why everybody's leaving. You know, the questions are there.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. So everybody's got an agenda, including Watchtower. Watchtower has the biggest agenda. And, you know, the fact that people are speaking out and who have been taken advantage of, people who are victims of child sexual abuse that was never reported, that, you know, I just saw someone talking, and I think Parker was talking to somebody yesterday, and it was posted today, that this man had been molested, and his molester is in prison, but in good standing as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But because he spoke out against it, he's disfellowshipped and shunned by his family.
Mm-hmm.
He was the victim, and he's being shunned.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to think about something too. What would we have to gain by spreading lies or trying to get people to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses? I mean, there's no way any of this benefits us at all.
No.
I mean, if anything, it has come to our detriment.
Yeah.
That we have stepped up and said these things publicly.
Mm-hmm.
So for the witnesses to say they want followers after themselves, I don't want any followers. I don't even care if you've subscribed to our YouTube channel. If you want to see more stuff like this, that's awesome. Do it. If you don't. I don't care. We don't care. We're not trying to lead people. We're not trying to take people anywhere. We're not trying to do any of the things that the witnesses claim apostates are trying to do. And if you sit down and think about it, you'll know that what they say isn't true. Because what could we possibly have to gain by spreading lies?
Yeah.
I mean, right now in the news, there's a lawsuit, a defamation of character lawsuit that's very public. And don't think that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society wouldn't sue people if they were truly defaming the organization, if they were truly hurting the reputation of the organization. Because they do. They have lawyers. They are more than capable to litigate. They've got a whole bunch of people that handle that kind of stuff. But they can't sue any of these apostates. They can't sue anybody that says something against them publicly because it's true. And they don't want to bring any kind of legal attention to any of this stuff, because then it brings scrutiny to the organization. Then it brings scrutiny to what the person is claiming, what the apostate is claiming. And they can't have that. So for you to think it's not worth the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society's time to sue every person who says negative things, I need you to think about that. Because if someone was truly defaming the organization, they would stop it. They would send cease and desist letters. They would threaten a lawsuit. They would do what it takes to protect themselves, and they've done it before. But this is something they can't protect because it's true. So the only thing they can do is mislead you and tell you not to believe it. And that's wearing very thin with a lot of people.
Right.
So
the more of us that are speaking out, you know, then it's good, because it's going to make, you know, certain witnesses start to think, why are all these people speaking out? You know, what, you know, that they can't all be lying.
Yeah. It's just like, I look at it like throwing a drowning man a rope. That's it. I have no other intentions other than that. I see people who are drowning in lies. Mm-hmm. And I feel a sense of obligation as a human being who was once in that very water where they are now, and I'm out. I feel an obligation to throw a rope, to try and help somebody. Whether they choose to grab the rope and free themselves from the lies is up to them. But, you know, I wouldn't feel good about myself if I never tried to help anyone, never tried to stop someone from making the mistakes I felt like I've made in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, so for people who can say they want followers or there's something that they want, nope, not true. So, you know, these claims about those who've left the organization, you'll see in time that it'll become very clear who's been telling the truth and who's been lying.
Yes, it will. So, that's about it. Hopefully we'll be able to make more videos like this in the future. And, you know, we hope all of you are doing well. We know we've probably let a bunch of you down from us not making videos, but, you know, we're very busy. This is a sacrifice of our time to sit here and have to make this video. And we're willing to do it. We just can't do it as often as we used to.
Yeah, and Robin is really the one who does the video editing too, so it's something that's very time consuming for her. So you know, we're busy and we're done sacrificing our free time for that religion. Done.
That's kind of the point I came to. I'm like, I'm still sacrificing a lot of time for that religion. That you know, and it's to help other people, but you know, I have to take care of myself.
Yeah, and at some point, you know, there's only so much you can do, and it's not like we're the only people doing it. There's people out there who have stepped up and are making great videos now, and there's ones who've been around for years making great videos still.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a shortage of information out there. You don't want to listen to our videos? Great. Go listen to Kim and Mikey's videos. You don't want to listen to their videos? Great. Go listen to A Spoon Fed No More. You don't want to listen to her videos? Go listen to Fifth. Go listen. There's a million people out there making videos.
Not a million.
If you don't relate to somebody's personal story, there is someone out there who you will relate to their story. Because there's such a variety of people with such an extensive background of being a Jehovah's Witness. Some for decades and decades, even longer than Robin and I were in. You know, so it's just, the information is out there. Don't be ignorant. Don't be willfully ignorant. You've heard people make claims. The two-witness rule. What is the two-witness rule? Do some research. You know, many witnesses have never heard about that. If you haven't looked into the Australian Royal Commission, look into that. If you don't believe that there's lawsuits against Jehovah's Witnesses, Google lawsuits Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, we're not trying to lead anyone to a specific place. We just want people to see that the information is out there and you can learn the truth about it if you're just not scared from what they tell you. And they're feeding you with fear to make you not look. Maybe one last thing. There's not a day that goes by. Go ahead, finish my sentence because you know what I'm talking about.
There's not a day that goes by that both of us don't have the same thought of how thankful we are that we're not Jehovah's Witnesses anymore.
Yep.
Not a day.
Yeah.
There's a point in every single day where I have that thought of, I am so glad I'm not a Jehovah's Witness anymore.
Yep. And it's been more than 10 years since I've stepped into a Kingdom Hall, since I've gone to a memorial, since I've been out in field service, since I did any of that business.
It's been at least 12 years. No, longer than that.
And
this is 2018. It's been since 2005, 2006. Yeah.
And there literally is not a day that goes by that I'm not thankful that I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because when you get a taste of the truth and you know that what you learn is the truth, there's just no going back. There's no ever going back.
No.
And so for people who think, oh, maybe these people will come back, no, people who leave are never coming back, because it's impossible to learn the truth about something and go back to living a lie. And the people who do try it, to try and have a relationship with family, my bet is that that's going to be very short-lived, because you can't do it. You will break your mind, trying to live a lie, trying to live who you aren't, trying to be something you aren't.
Even in my darkest days, my darkest moments, since, we've been shunned now for over 2 years, even in those darkest times, I have still felt gratitude that I don't have to live an inauthentic life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wouldn't trade this freedom of my mind and of my life and my choices that I truly do feel are my decisions now. I would not trade that for anything. I wouldn't trade that to have my family back in my life.
Mm-mm.
That's too big a sacrifice, And if they can't love me and accept me and have a relationship with me for who I am now, then that's their prerogative. That's their choice. That's their, decision and journey, and they have to do what they have to do. But I wouldn't trade it to have them back in my life. Ever.
No, and that's, in a way, it sounds weird to say it like this, but in a way that's been a blessing as well, because you don't have to worry about how you're going to deal with friends that you used to have, because they don't talk to you anymore. You don't worry about it. And it may be for people who are maybe a little more shy, like me, who aren't so super outgoing. It allowed me to start from scratch and find friends who were of the same ilk, who liked the same things, who had things in common. And, I've been super fortunate in that aspect. I have more friends now than I ever had as a Jehovah's Witness. I have more people involved in my life, and I'm involved in more people's lives than ever before. And these are all people I care about, and I care about them by choice, not because I'm assigned to go to a book study with them,
Mm-hmm.
or because I'm assigned to work in field service with them. These are my choices and their choices. So that's been really nice, to be with people you want to be with,
Yeah.
to find people who think the way you do and like the things you like, and it's not forced. And that's the thing, that with being a witness, you're basically forced into who your friends are, and you're free now to do what you want. And you may miss some of those friends who don't talk to you. I mean, I don't, but somebody might. And there's no pressure. You can either want to be around somebody because you like them or not. There's no pressure to have to associate with people that you don't have anything in common with. And there's nobody telling you have to learn to get along with this person because you're going to rely on them in the end. No, if you don't get along with somebody, it's okay. It's okay not to get along with somebody. You don't have to be friends with them.
Yeah.
I
love that. I love that I can say, bye, you're not good in my life, so I don't have to have you in my life. And then I don't have to feel like, oh, I gotta see them at the meeting I have a new personality and I gotta be nice and a sister to them.
Mm-hmm. So
fake. It's so fake. You guys are so fake.
Well, that's, what they call living the real life. The real life.
Being fake is living the real life.
I contest that life is not real.
It's not.
And anyone who is a current Jehovah's Witness, you know that there are people in the hall that you just don't really like, and maybe they don't really like you, and maybe it's nothing personal. Maybe you just don't get along. Maybe they just totally different personalities. You know, that's human nature. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is kind of wrong to make people have to choose. Like, it's wrong to take the choice away from people, is I guess what I'm trying to say, about who their friends can be, who their associates can be, who they can love, who they can marry, who they can spend time with, who they can do projects with, who they can work with. You know, those kind of things are out the door when you leave. It's your choice. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why everybody who's a witness thinks, oh, you're obviously going to make horrible, wrong choices when you leave because you're so wicked. No. Same choices I would have made as a witness, except maybe a little more true to myself, you know?
And every story that they tell, even in the latest JW broadcasting, is that if someone leaves, they're going to become a drug addicted, you know, their life is going to fall apart, and they're just going to be a drug addict, and they're going to be living in sin. And every story they tell, the person was, you know, addicted to drugs and in their, you know, deepest, darkest place, and living in sin, and having children out of wedlock, and getting diseases. That is not real. That is, I don't even think I believe these stories. I kind of think they're made up.
I will tell you right now, I believe 100% that anytime you hear a story from a platform, from a talk, in a magazine, that says, there was a man named Bob who lived in an area that was tough, or anytime there's lack of details, the story's not true. It's BS. Because the witnesses have given stories about people. There was the one that I remember specifically, it was a talk given at one of the conventions about a young man who died because of not accepting a blood transfusion, and it was an encouraging talk built around this young man's life because he remained faithful up until death, even despite of pressures from people trying to get him to break his integrity to Jehovah. So they gave this man's name, they said when he eventually died, they gave the place where he lived, and talked to people that knew him, and blah blah blah. And that's how you can tell a story is real, when there is full information: who, what, where, when, why, the basics, you know. And when you get a story that just gives a first name and maybe a country, not even any specific detail about where this happened. If you saw a newspaper article that said John in the UK did such and such, you're like, what's that? That doesn't make sense. That's not how stories work. If you have a factual story, you provide the facts. And so these stories, these made up, no, I'm not even going to air quote, they're made up stories. If you guys are believing these fake stories, I feel sorry for you, because they're fake. And if you haven't learned how to tell when someone's telling you the truth or lying to you or not, you should listen to some online classes and try and figure out, you know, logic and some other things
critical thinking skills
that can help you identify when you're being lied to, that can help you identify when their key information is missing from a story that would lead you to believe that it was false. You know, none of these things would stand up in a court of law. None of these things pass the test. So to me, I feel like I can smell it a mile away. You know, these fake stories with no information given, and they're so generic, and they're always taking you right to where you'd expect them to take you. You know, it's like a little fairy tale story, and this is the happy ending that happens. You know, and by the way, the witnesses aren't the only ones that do it. The Mormons do it. Christian evangelicals do it, because by the way, I listen to a ton of Christian radio too, which don't ask me why. I still don't understand. But they themselves, you know, tell plenty of stories about how they meet people in the ministry and they feel like Jesus directed them, or the angels directed them to this person. If if you subscribe to, there's a channel on YouTube called The Mormon Channel, and it's literally like jw.org. It's assemblies, it's meetings, it's interviews, it's little reenactments and movies. It's all the same stuff. Mormons and JWs are like this, and you know, with what they're doing. Watch some of those videos and tell me that doesn't remind you of Jehovah's Witnesses. Tell me it's not the same thing. About a story of a person who was praying and they were going to commit suicide because their life was so hard and their husband had just left, and two Mormon missionaries knock on the door and they introduce them to the Book of Mormon and Jesus Christ, and then they're saved. You know, every religion has these stories, and the reason you guys don't know about it is because you close yourselves off from every other religion. And Jehovah's Witnesses are no different than any other religion out there.
Yeah, that was
they're
surprising
more controlling.
to me.
But
yeah, well, that was surprising to me that other religions had the same stories, and so that started to open my eyes too a lot. But anyways, we're gonna leave it there. The rant is over for today. Thank you for watching, and until next time, who knows when that'll be. Bye.